Iga Swiatek addresses the shift in her rivalry with Coco Gauff after United Cup loss. Coco Gauff got the better of Iga Swiatek in their latest meeting, but it was Poland who came out on top overall. The American picked up a 6-4, 6-2 win over Swiatek in the United Cup semi-final between the USA and Poland. Their match in Sydney lasted 1 hour and 41 minutes. However, it was Poland who had the final say, as they knocked out the defending champions to set up a title clash against Switzerland. Hubert Hurkacz took care of Taylor Fritz in singles, while Katarzyna Kawa and Jan Zielinski sealed the win by beating Gauff and Christian Harrison in doubles. Iga Swiatek praises Coco Gauff after United Cup defeat. Swiatek spoke to the media following the semi-final, where she was asked about the recent shift in her rivalry with Gauff. "Yeah, for sure I feel like Coco has improved stuff. It's quite visible," she stated. "The matches we played a couple of years back where most of them were kind of one-sided. I feel like that's it. She's also growing in age, more experienced as well. So yeah, she's a top player for many years now, even though she started when she was like 16, much earlier than most of us do. Yeah, congrats to her basically." Coco Gauff holds edge in growing rivalry with Iga Swiatek. Heading into their latest contest, Swiatek held a strong record over Gauff, having won 11 of their previous 15 meetings. But the American has now taken the last 3, including both of their encounters in 2025, at the United Cup and in Madrid. Gauff also came out on top in their clash at the 2024 WTA Finals, suggesting she has figured out how to break through after a series of early setbacks. Their rivalry remains one of the most compelling stories on the WTA Tour. With both players heading into Grand Slam season in good form, another showdown could be just around the corner at the Australian Open. While Gauff has had more recent success, it is worth noting that Swiatek did win their last Grand Slam encounter, taking victory at Roland Garros in 2024. Rivalries in tennis rarely announce when they change. They shift in silences, in glances across the net, in press conferences where words are carefully chosen but meaning lingers between the lines. After Poland's loss to the United States at the United Cup, Iga Swiatek did not dramatize the moment. She did something far more revealing. She acknowledged that something had moved in her long-running rivalry with Coco Gauff. For years, the storyline had been relatively straightforward. Swiatek, the relentless world number 1 archetype, armed with heavy topspin and a near-monastic devotion to improvement. Gauff, the prodigy turned contender, explosive, emotional, learning in public while carrying the weight of expectation. Their head-to-head once leaned decisively in Swiatek's favor, and the tennis world, eager for patterns, labeled it a matchup problem for the American. But tennis is allergic to permanence. In the mixed-team cauldron of the United Cup, where national pride blurs the edges of individual rivalry, Gauff's win landed differently. It wasn't just a loss on the scoreboard for Swiatek, it was a moment that demanded reflection. When Swiatek addressed it afterward, her tone was neither defensive nor dismissive. Instead, it carried a rare candor, an admission that the rivalry had entered a new phase. "I think Coco has changed," Swiatek suggested, not as a concession of weakness, but as recognition of growth. It was a statement rooted in respect. Gauff was no longer simply reacting to Swiatek's patterns, she was anticipating them, disrupting them, imposing her own tempo. The rallies no longer felt scripted. They felt contested. For Swiatek, whose game has long been built on control, of spin, of angles, of emotional rhythm, this shift matters deeply. Rivalries are mirrors. They reflect not only what the opponent is doing right, but where one must evolve. In acknowledging the change, Swiatek subtly reframed the narrative. This was no longer a rivalry defined by history, but by adaptation. There was no bitterness in her words, only analysis. She spoke about margins, about how matches between top players are now decided by small, fleeting moments. A return landed half a step deeper. A forehand taken earlier. A willingness to step inside the baseline instead of waiting for an error. These are the quiet details where rivalries are rewritten. What makes Swiatek's response compelling is her self-awareness. She did not hide behind excuses of timing or format. The United Cup, after all, is a unique environment, short preparation, emotional volatility, unfamiliar pressure. Yet Swiatek resisted the temptation to minimize it. Instead, she treated the loss as information. That, perhaps, is the real shift. In earlier chapters of their rivalry, the question often centered on when Gauff would figure it out against Swiatek. Now, the question subtly inverts. How will Swiatek adjust to a Gauff who has already done so? Swiatek's acknowledgement signals that she understands this inversion, and that she welcomes it. There is a maturity in recognizing that dominance is not a destination but a moving target. Swiatek's greatness has never been about invincibility, it has been about responsiveness. Each setback becomes data. Each loss, a prompt rather than a verdict. Gauff, for her part, represents a new generation of rivals who are no longer content with admiration. She has learned to absorb Swiatek's weight of shot, to redirect rather than resist it. More importantly, she has learned to believe, not just in flashes, but across entire matches. Confidence, once intermittent, now feels structural. When Swiatek spoke about the rivalry after the United Cup, she was, in effect, narrating tennis in real time. Not the loud kind, filled with declarations and predictions, but the quieter kind where respect replaces assumption. She didn't say the rivalry had flipped. She didn't say it was even. She simply acknowledged that it had changed. And in elite sport, change is everything. The beauty of this moment lies in its incompleteness. Rivalries are not resolved in January, nor in one team event. They unfold across seasons, across surfaces, across versions of the players themselves. Swiatek knows this. Her words hinted at continuity rather than closure, a sense that this rivalry is entering its most interesting chapter yet. There is also something human in her response. To admit that an opponent has grown is to accept that one must grow too. It is an act of humility without surrender, of respect without retreat. Swiatek did not sound threatened, she sounded engaged. As the season stretches ahead, their next meetings will carry this subtext. Each forehand exchange will echo with the knowledge that the old scripts no longer apply. For fans, this is a gift. For the players, it is a challenge worthy of their ambition. After the United Cup loss, Iga Swiatek didn't lament what she had lost. She acknowledged what had arrived, a rivalry no longer defined by past results, but by present tension. In doing so, she reminded the tennis world that true greatness isn't about staying ahead forever, it's about recognizing when the race has truly begun.